Hey, Artie Quitter podcast. Good job by Danny Filato. I asked him to get somebody this morning. Who I'm sure is very busy on a book tour, and is a guy whose work I've enjoyed over the years. Rich Coen is a very talented writer and author. He's got a great book out about the Stones, and if you know me, I devour everything about the Stones. And this one's called "The Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones" by Rich Coen. And of course, I think that's a Keith Richards quote, which I saw Mr. Coen talk about in an interview, and it sounded like a fun conversation with Keith on the road. Rich Coen is here. We'll get into more of his resume. But what's up, Rich? Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thank you.
Hey, so you're a Chicago guy, first of all, right? Bears. You wrote a great book about the Bears, and you grew up in Chicago.
I grew up outside North Shore, grew up as, 1984 is probably the most formative year of my life. I was certain the Cubs were going to win the World Series. They lost. We watched the game on TV because on network TV we had the sound turned down and the radio on to listen to Harry Carey's broadcast. That's the only thing that's missing this year, by the way, is Harry Carey. And they went out. They lost 3 games in a row in San Diego. I went outside, put my head in my hands, and cried. And that's why the Bears, the 85 Bears were like sort of Chicago's revenge on, you make us cry, we're going to knock out every one of your quarterbacks on our way to the Super Bowl.
They were so good. They were boring. Absolutely. They were, I had, I had them, I think, giving a 41 in the Super Bowl, so I won. 46-10, I believe, the final against Tony Eason's New England Patriots.
And they were coasting at the end, and they had like their 5th stringers in. They weren't even trying by the end. They were still scoring.
That's arguably, the 55-10 49ers-Broncos, the last bowl Montana got with the Niners, that was a boring game.
By the way, I've been to 2 Super Bowls in my life. Those are the 2.
Oh, well, listen, it's not boring if your team is the one doing the killing, so that's fine. But 55-10, you better have a bet on something.
Yeah, that was boring.
To enjoy that. I remember that. But the 46-10 is so dominant. The Patriots looked like they really were in another league much lower. Pop Warner, they were dominant. But what happened with the dynasty there? Come on, my Giants just show up next year and cover every week, 14-2 with LT.
Well, there's a lot of different reasons, but I think the big one is if you study the team, you realize that there's basically one thing every guy on that team did after the Super Bowl, which is they opened a bar. I think there were like 26 bars. The second string kicker had opened a bar on the South Side, so they were distracted. And they kind of did they all showed up it's like in Goodfellas, and the guy shows up in mink coats after the Lufthansa heist. They did not keep it together.
Get it out of there tonight. What are you doing wearing that ring? Don't wear that ring. Get it out of here. Get it tonight. I want it out of here. Is Richard Dent drunk? Richard Dent is drunk. What are you doing drunk, Richard Dent? Is that a fedora you're wearing? Get the fedora out of here tonight. I want that. That's why I remember Richard Dent off the. I'll give you. It's funny you talk about being able to hold your liquor. I'll give you a New York Chicago anecdote you might know about Babe Ruth. The White Sox, so the team you guys hate, if you're Cub fans, had a game plan against Babe Ruth when they played him in the first series of the year. They said, we're going to get him really drunk, and he'll be too hungover to beat us the next day. So they take him out in Chicago. All the White Sox players get him loaded. He's drinking people describe Babe Ruth on a bender. He would actually just down a drink with ice in it and wouldn't stop until the ice went down his throat. All the ice, everything. He would chew on that kind of bender, like hookers, everything. Doesn't sleep, shows up at the ballpark, and supposedly Miller Huggins, the manager, was like, "Look at that gutter snipe scumbag! Look, he is just what a disgrace! What a disgrace!" Ruth hits 3 home runs and drives in 11 and single-handedly beats the White Sox. On the 3rd home run, supposedly he's rounding third base. And he looks at the White Sox dugout and yells, "Hey, guys, where are we going tonight?" That's probably not true, but classic. The Babe Ruth, again, as a writer, not to go off on a tangent, we'll get back to the Rolling Stones, but a little more about Babe Ruth. He's a partier like Keith Richards. That's the tie-in. They supposedly had a roommate for Babe Ruth on the road that was supposed to keep him in line, and he was a scrub, a bench warmer. And he's interviewed in one of the one of the documentaries, I don't know if it's one of the Ken Burns ones, but he was so funny because Babe Ruth would just get drunk and abuse the guy, play jokes on him, and he couldn't say he hated him. So he's like this older guy, and he goes, yeah, I remember one time we were in Pittsburgh, and I was, the Babe was always with the ladies, and I was in the shower, and I was scrubbing up in the shower. The shower was my one time of peace because the Babe wouldn't come in there usually. And I could shower in peace. So I'm showering, and I feel a warm stream on my back. And I turn around, and it's the Babe with a lady of the evening, and he's drunk, and he's urinating on my back. And he was laughing, and the lady was laughing. Boy, he thought that was funny.
Look, at least you're already in the shower.
Yeah, right.
That's all I can say.
Just keep boiling it. But it's the guy's like trying to be endearing, like, boy, he thought that was funny. Well, listen, again, I'm a fan of all your stuff. You're very, you got many talents when it comes to writing about many subjects. But the Stones, you're like me with the Stones. I love the music. And, of course, the stuff that's not the music, them on the road and the legends, I can't get enough of it. And how did you come about, meeting the Rolling Stones, and how did you start going on the road with them, and when was that?
Well, when I got a job when I was pretty young, really young, at Rolling Stone magazine, and I went to interview with the editor, was Jan Wenner, and my friend who'd sort of called me over said, listen, he's going to ask you what you most want to write about, and don't tell him the truth, because whatever you say, you're not going to get that assignment.
Right. Okay.
So sure enough, like halfway through the meeting, he says, "Oh, and if you can ever write about one thing, what would you write about?" And I said, "Bob Dylan." So a year later, I got less than a year. I got a call later saying, "Listen, the Rolling Stones are going on tour, and the record was Voodoo Lounge."
Right.
Which was Steel Wheels was the first record sort of after they broke up. I was in college when Steel Wheels came out.
So this would be 97-ish, Voodoo Lounge, I think, right?
Yeah, 96, 97.
Right.
And basically, they said, what you have to do is you have to get on a plane, go to Toronto, where they are basically putting together their show, and just hang out and watch them put together the show.
Wow.
And it was, it was unbelievable.
That's
it's like,
great.
I say it's like falling into the exhibit at the museum or something, or falling into the animal cage at the zoo. It's like... So I got on a plane. I was living in New York. I flew to Toronto. Think I'm going to go to sleep. It's like midnight. I got in late. Jane Rose, who was sort of Keith Richards' person, still is, came over and said, "Listen, why don't we go see him?" I said, "What are you talking about?" She said, "They're just starting, because they're like on rock and roll Rolling Stones time. They're working every night from like midnight till 8 a.m." So we drive outside Toronto to this little elementary school, junior high school that's deserted because it's the summer.
Right.
And as soon as you walk in the doors, it's empty school, you can hear that riff of Brown Sugar.
Oh,
and it's going all through the school. You have to kind of trace it back to its origin. And it's like this gym, like the kind of gym that I had in junior high where I had to run laps for being a wise guy.
Right.
But now it's been taken over by the Rolling Stones. And it's just them and an engineer. And Jane Rose ultimately left, and I just sat there all night, and watched them play. And what they would do is they would talk amongst each other, stand around in a group, and they would yell out different ideas for songs. Like, I remember they played Memory Motel, which is like a really great one.
I love that, yeah.
They played Can't Get Next to You, and that's a Temptation song, but Jagger said, "But I want to do it like Al Green does it."
Right.
And then they would play it on, the engineer was there basically, cue up the CD, they played the original version, and they would sort of listen to the original version and then play over it. Ron Wood was often writing down chords on a notepad because he hadn't been around for some of those songs.
Wow. Yeah, that's so cool to see.
And then they'd play it, and if they felt like there was something good there and they wanted to do it, they'd write it on a board. And they did that for like almost 2 weeks putting together the show, and I kind of just got to sit there and watch. And that ended with them doing a surprise warm-up gig at a little bar in Toronto, and that's when I'm like, well, gosh, man, this is the Stones in their natural habitat. Like, they're a bar band, you know?
No, they are, yeah.
They're in this little bar, all jammed together, just, it's like a transcendent moment. It's unbelievably great, and I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah, they're a blues band. People forget that. They're meant to be like that little, like you just said, like the, Buddy Guy type thing, just, where you're belting it out in a small bar. I mean, they attack and play stadiums and arenas in an amazing way, but they're a blues band. They don't have those anthems like the Who or something, you know. They're more nuanced and funky, and that's what I love about them. You know what it shows the Stones type of cool, like what you just said at a small bar, is that gig they do at Muddy Waters, a little bar, the Checkerboard Lounge.
Oh, yeah. That's actually Buddy Guy's place. That's where we used to go when I was 15 because they would serve anybody alcohol no matter how old they were.
Perfect. Yeah, I mean, the contrast, the Stones do something in that's a contrast between them being so cool and somebody like, you know, something One Direction would never do nowadays. There's no way, because it's so small, there's no way for them to get to the stage, and they don't want to make everybody get up, so they just casually, with their guitars and cigarettes and drinks, I believe, walk on the tables over to the stage. And the way Keith Richards does it is just so rock and roll, very casual. We'll just walk on the tables. And, you know, nowadays a group would be like, well, a manager's like, we don't want them to get hurt. I mean, you know, there's a lot of money here. And it's just, they are the epitome of cool, man. It's great.
Yeah, and that was like them and their, I mean, I always thought, like, you get to like 2, 3 in the morning, and that's like, they're back to where they were in 1963.
Right. Well, it's amazing with their library of songs. That what I take away from that story is that Jagger's like, I want to sing a song like Al Green, so we'll labor. Instead of singing one of the 2 million songs we have, we'll labor over something kind of new that's a cover, and do that. You know, it's and their shows are peppered with that, which is really cool. So then you go on the road with them for that tour. Is that what happened?
Well, no, I went with them I was there for 2 weeks or whatever. I came back, had to write the story.
Right.
Then the story went over well, and it was a big deal for me, too, just because it was like the first real big story I'd written, too.
Yeah.
And I was so much younger than them at the time. That's where the title comes from, which I was interviewing Keith, and he starts to ask, he's like, wait, like the questions were throwing him off. He goes, wait a second, what year were you born?
Right.
And I go, 1968, which now doesn't make me that young, but then did. And he says, whoa, he just starts laughing. He goes, you know what, I should be asking you questions. You tell me, I don't know what it's like. For you, there's always been the sun and the moon and the Rolling Stones.
That's right. Okay, there you go.
Yep. I wrote that story, and then I went back up there to see that warm-up gig, which was almost like a celebration of the story, and hung out with them, and that was great. And then I thought it was over, and then a couple weeks later, my editor called again and said, we want you to go on the road and meet them now and travel with them and write about that.
Right.
That's
a whole other aspect of them. Exactly. Like, what's it like traveling? By the way, I was born in '67, Rich. So if you have any questions about what it was like in the '60s,
right,
I could tell you. But yeah, for me, the same thing: the Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones. But now you get the assignment for the different aspect of them, them on the road.
Yeah, that was awesome and weird and everything. Because first of all, I got this incredible access for whatever reason where they kind of like let me watch a lot of the shows from on the stage.
Wow.
Or, from wherever I wanted, and then I would travel in their plane and in their vehicles and was sort of cruising around with them. And we were just quoting, Scorsese. So one of the great moments to me is waiting outside, all the vans with all the people are ready for them as they're finishing what I think was Jumpin' Jack Flash, which is their encore. And there's 2 vans. In one van, basically Jagger drives alone.
Right.
And in the other van, everybody else rides. And I'm sitting in the van where everybody else rides, and Keith gets in, and Keith doesn't seem to be moving a lot during the show.
Right.
He's doing like little Chuck Berry flourishes, but he gets off, and he's just, it's like he's fought a 15-round fight.
Right.
He's soaked. He can't catch his breath. He's like wheezing, and he turns to me and goes, hey, Joey, put my robe on right.
Yeah,
Joey, put on my robe.
You know what's funny? That it's so amazing you say that, because it took me 5 times watching it to see it. That's in Shine a Light. That's in the documentary.
Yeah.
In the documentary, and you could tell Richards made sure he said it, and the microphone with all the noise didn't get it at the beacon, and you could tell they went back in ADR, and he probably insisted on overdoing that line. Right. So it would be in the film. In the Scorsese film, and again, it was so cool. It took me, by the 3rd time, I said, he's doing fucking De Niro in Raging Bull. He goes, with the cigarette in his mouth, like, put my robe on right.
Right.
And I guess that's something he always does. That's awesome. They're big fans. That's the thing. And you could tell Scorsese's first movie, first big movie that got him a name, Mean Streets, Jumpin' Jack Flash. The Stones are all over it. He's always been a Stones guy,
Right, and that's how they met. So that's a story I heard from Scorsese, which is when he was doing Mean Streets, he wanted to use Jumpin' Jack Flash in that scene where, I think it's the scene, if I'm remembering correct, where the guy gets shot in the bathroom, but he just won't die.
Yeah, well, it's funny. It shows up early on. The first shot that Spike Lee kind of rips off, the first shot that when Harvey Keitel's doing that thing where he's moving through the bar, but he doesn't look like he's walking. It's sort of like
it's so cool. He comes in like on a red light in slow motion.
Right. You hear the opening riff of Jumpin' Jack Flash there, and then it's in that scene you're talking about. Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he said that he wanted to use it. And he, got a hold of Jagger, and Jagger wanted to see the whole movie first to make sure the movie was cool.
How odd that! I mean, you're talking about he must have gotten a recommendation to Jagger from somebody, because that's really, he's not on the map at all. And the fact that Jagger a complete unknown, would look at his film first.
But see, that's what's amazing about Jagger. You mentioned like the covers, which is Jagger's sort of like the guy who's open to the outside world, bringing in new influences. He's always had this ability to bring in really cool, talented people to work with them and give them new inspiration. And he finds people like Scorsese when he's 28 or whatever he was, and knows that this guy's doing something interesting. Let's work with him.
Wow, I mean, that's hit, man. That's knowing your shit. And Gimme Shelter. What sucks about it is Gimme Shelter is almost hacky to put that in a movie now. Scorsese used to use it in such cool ways. Like the darkest shit in a Scorsese movie is related to Gimme Shelter, or in Goodfellas, the way he uses Monkey Man and Can You Hear Me Knocking, and it's just unbelievably great. And now it's in everything. The Stones are cashing in on that stuff.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like the difference between how careful he was that first time to now anybody wants it, they can basically have it. And probably some of that has to do with the fact that it's impossible now to make money selling records.
Well, absolutely. That's the other part of it. But, money is hopefully something they don't need. But I guess you can't leave your kids enough. So now you go, when do you sort of get did you ever go on the road with them in a way where you got really close with them, where you felt maybe you're friendly with them?
I felt like I was friendly with them that time. And the joke was we ended up in New York at the MTV Music Awards where they were performing. And first of all, I sat in the empty arena and watched them rehearse Love Is Strong, which was the single on that record.
Great video.
Cool about it,
great video.
Great video was David Fincher directed that video.
No kidding. That's what I love that song too. And again, they didn't do anything relevant really after Tattoo You, but they had a couple of great top 40 pop songs. And that video, there's nothing like that, where they're walking amongst the skyscrapers. You know that video?
But see, that's what I'm talking about about finding people like David Fincher. He hadn't done anything yet.
Unbelievable. Yeah, he did Zodiac, right? That guy, and Seven.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So anyway. It was really cool because the band was up on the stage, and then Jagger would come kind of from the wings and walk down the aisle playing the harmonica solo to start the song.
Right.
And after they were over, I was walking with Jagger, talking to him. We were just walking off stage, it's two of us, totally empty place, and Bruce Springsteen walks out to do his rehearsal, and they talk for a second, and then Jagger goes, I want you to meet my good friend Rich Coen.
Oh, that's great.
So people always say, do you ever meet Bruce Springsteen? I'm like, oh, yeah, Mick Jagger introduced me.
I mean, listen, man, again, again, we were born almost the same year. I am so with you there, and why that's so cool. Springsteen, my story is about Bruce's being from Jersey. Where are you from, Rich, first? Oh, you're from Chicago. Okay, well, from being from Jersey, after I went through my hell with the Stern Show and I crashed into the mountain and thank God survived, I got out of rehab, and Springsteen knew that I was a big fan through Stern, and he called me at home, talked to me for an hour, and helped me get through a horrible time in my life. And you do realize part of the of the 2 billion things that's great about that, you realize that this guy's peers are people like Mick Jagger, and he's helping me out. It's unreal. How did that make you feel? I mean, the other thing the Stones are famous for is using people and forgetting them. So you must be something special about you. They must really like you or respect you, which is great.
Well, it's kind of like you're with them for a while, and then what happened that was different was the vinyl. Right. So that extended the whole relationship, not with the Stones, but with Jagger. But It's interesting. You asked if there was ever a moment where I felt like we sort of with them. One of the great things that they do before each show is Ron Wood and Keith Richards warm up in what they call the guitar room,
right,
which is sort of rebuilt. The whole backstage setup is rebuilt in every single place they play. So it's like they never move. They're always in the same place.
Oh, wow.
Like they put the books back on the shelves in the same order.
Oh, wow.
It's like everything's exactly the same, so they can feel like they have some normalcy.
Interesting.
They know everything is, and everything's familiar. So they have this room, and it's got, if you're into guitars, it's got the coolest steel guitars and all these crazy old, fashion guitars. And they just sit there, and they're drinking Jack Daniels and smoking cigarettes and doing whatever they're doing, and they are, playing old Hank Williams tunes and stuff just to warm up.
Wow.
And there was a great thing I put in the story, but they said I couldn't have it originally, which is Keith Richards always had this big old-fashioned doctor's bag, like a big leather bag, like for house calls.
I bet he did.
And he's always going. I always thought it was like the bag in Pulp Fiction, like I expected to see it glowing, And he says, he's like looking at me. He's like, "What's wrong with you? Because in here I got the cure for whatever ails you, man."
I bet he does, man.
And I put that in the story. They're like, "You can't put that in. You're going to get him busted."
Well, exactly. I mean, first of all, that's cool, the story you just told about redoing the room exactly the same for a sense of normalcy. And if anybody ever wonders why a Stones ticket is $500, you're hearing why. I mean, there's an advanced team going there to make a replica of what happened in St. Louis to make Denver look like it. It's if the Stones can pull it off, because I've seen them in concert, they're as good as you'd think. And if you got the extra scratch, it's worth it. But let me ask you this. On the road, the relationship between Keith Richards and Jagger, without, talking out of turn, I mean, you're friendly with them. Are they friendly at all? Do they interact? You hear stories about how there's no interaction until they're on stage and none after.
Well, I'll tell you, one of the things I liked most about the Stones when I was a kid was their music, of course, but also this idea that they were a gang. And they were like blood brothers, and they were best friends.
Right.
It's like the Springsteen song "No Surrender." That's what I thought about them. And you sort of felt like you could be into them. You can kind of join that gang, and you wanted to get in with sort of like the chief of the gang and his chief lieutenant. Yeah. And I kind of worked my way unbelievably, got right in there, got into the clubroom, and found out the two head guys don't really like each other very much.
Right.
And it was kind of a shock. I mean, now we know it because Keith's book Life, and it's come out and everything. But basically, like I said, Jagger would be in one van, everybody else would be in another van. And, even in that guitar room, Jagger wasn't there, but you could hear Jagger way off in the distance doing his, warm-up exercises to sing, and Keith just sort of snickering and making fun of him a little bit,
That's hilarious.
And at one point he said, "What can he do in there we can't do in here?" And he dropped down and did like 5 military push-ups with a cigarette in his mouth that then burned a perfect little hole in the carpet. I thought, that hole in that carpet, that's Keith Richards.
Well, listen, I mean, the analogy is true. They're like a gang, but the one thing that will fuck up a gang is if the chief fucks his first lieutenant's wife. That will
not good.
Yeah, not a good thing to do it. But the Ramones got that whole thing too. That fucked them up. The first book I read about the Stones was Exile. No, I read STP first, and amazing. But I read the Exile on Main Street, A Season in Hell with the Rolling Stones, all about Villanelle Court, in the Exile, and that's the first time I had heard that Jagger fucked Pallenberg on the set of Performance, and Richard finds out about it, and never, to this day, supposedly brings it up, that stoic English thing. He gets him back in passive-aggressive ways.
Well, he got him back in his book where he...
his tiny dick.
Tiny Todger. He said Anita got no pleasure from the tiny Todger.
so it's definitely true that they're not on speaking terms, pretty much.
Well, I don't know exactly what they're like right now, but the situation is that the sleeping with the Anita Pallenberg was part of it and how Keith felt, and I don't think he ever really forgave it. But remember, Keith had already stolen Anita Pallenberg from Brian Jones.
Yeah, that's pretty evident that he was getting some karma back there. Absolutely.
Right. So, and now she's on the road. Like, imagine Brian Jones this is the love of your life. She's still on the road with the band, only now she's in the room with the other guitar player.
Well, yeah, there's two ways.
She was on tour with them.
That's what I mean.
You know?
Yeah, there were. Look, there's two things to pull from that story. One is that Richards was a scumbag, and then Jagger was a scumbag, and the other thing to pull from is Pallenberg is a whore.
Well, I mean, also, but also Brian Jones was, to be completely fair about it, he hit her, and so he was a really bad guy.
He was the stories about him was and that it was justified that Keith Richards hated it. I mean, look, they didn't go to his funeral, Keith and Mick, and
right, they didn't go to his funeral.
Yeah,
but he sort of rescued her from a situation where, I think Bill Wyman said that they thought he almost beat her so badly in Morocco or wherever they were that thought he could kill her.
Right. Yeah. He was a bad guy. You're right. That's just flat out. So, and look, it was rock and roll. What are you going to do? It's such a.
But the other key thing in that relationship is basically Keith got addicted to heroin.
Right.
Okay, and he kind of went into this thing where he could still write and he could still perform, but that's all he could do. Right. And at that point, Jagger had to step forward and really lead the band, which had at one time been Brian Jones's band.
Yep.
And he emerged, and if not for him, the band would have broken up and stopped, like many other bands. And he sort of took over and ran them. And then basically Keith Richards got sober, or clean from heroin, I should say, because he got busted in Toronto. And he had to, or go to prison, basically. And then when he sort of reemerged, he wanted control.
Uh-huh.
And Jagger's like, well, where have you been?
Right.
And it's like they had all these fights, Jagger kind of liked disco.
Yeah.
He didn't.
Absolutely.
And you can hear it on Some Girls, and it's great. It's like this argument that's being played out on the record between punk and disco. So that's what was always so great about them. All that backstage stuff always somehow turned up in the songs.
Yeah. And in a weird way, though, that album is so unique in how funky it is. It's so great. I mean, it's a great album in a different way. And it's funny, that argument created something very original, creative-wise, I think. Just my own opinion. It's a lot of great stuff about New York on that album, And,
it's totally a New York album.
Right.
Jagger was living in New York, and he was, sort of going to Studio 54 and that whole Andy Warhol kind of scene, and it all turns up on the record in songs like Shattered.
Miss You's such a great New York song. And,
and Beast of Burden,
right.
and they're sort of disco songs, but they still have the kind of, Keith Richards lick to them.
Right.
Well,
that's
it's interesting. Tattoo You is like, you mentioned Tattoo You. I always thought of Tattoo You as the sort of the last great Stones record.
I do too, absolutely.
But when you get into it, what you find out is by the time they made Tattoo You, they were not talking to each other. And I spoke to Chris Kimsey, who produced that record, and he said basically one guy would come in and do a bunch of work, wouldn't be in the studio with the other guy, and the other guy would come in and undo the other guy's work.
Jesus.
Let's get rid of that, let's get rid of that.
God.
So the thing is, where do they get these songs? Basically, almost all the songs on Tattoo You are outtakes from earlier records. So, and Chris Kimsey sort of made them into a unified whole. So, for example, one of my favorite Stone songs, and another great video, was Waiting on a Friend.
Waiting on a Friend, the Lower East Side. Yep, absolutely.
Waiting on a Friend was originally recorded, I think, for Goat's Head Soup and not used.
Wow.
And Start Me Up was recorded in the mid-'70s as a reggae song.
No kidding. Yeah, that's right, because Do 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 is on Goat's Head Soup, which is another New York tune. Wow, could you imagine trying to deal with that as a producer? One icon would undo another icon's work. And
right, he was like, I couldn't even work with them anymore. It was just miserable for me,
What's great about Some Girls, too, is like a song like Miss You, it represents, they sing about the old New York before it got ungritty, before Giuliani took the Disney money. Because there's lines in that song that don't make sense now to someone who wasn't around back then. Like in Miss You, that line, I've been walking Central Park. People think I'm crazy.
Right.
That's when it was crazy to walk in Central Park after dark, and now it's not kind of that nuts anymore.
I always think of Rats on the West Side, Bedbugs Uptown.
Right, and Shattered. I got to tell you, that is, I love that. It's funny you bring that up, that's how they did that album, and I love so much about that in a unique way. The concert for New York, it shows that the Stones have
have balls to do different shit. Like the Who steals that concert, but they do the same 4 songs they always do in an arena, and they're amazing and everything. But the Stones start off with "Miss You." And,
Right.
it was clearly a New York song, and not like the one you'd think you're not "Start Me Up," not one of the huge hits. And it shows how great and diversified their entire history is with songs, because they have something like that in their back pocket that's specifically New York and funky. They don't have to go to the standards.
Right. And I'll tell you something else that's really cool if you're like writing a book about them and researching and trying to do a bunch of reporting. I thought it could be a travel book. They have such good taste in places they went, that if you just went to the places that were musically important to them, those are great places. That's New York, south of France, like you mentioned, Chicago, L.A.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Switzerland, where Keith got clean, basically, and then later unclean, and Jamaica.
Right, Jamaica. Keith's big into Jamaica and the reggae influence. Well, in Paris, they sing a lot about Paris. The boulevards of Paris.
Yep, and they recorded in Paris. And on "Miss You," actually, that harmonica solo, which is "Miss You," right?
Right.
That's this guy who Chris Kimsey, I think, came across playing in this Metro in the Underground in Paris and brought him into the studio for one night.
Great stories. I mean, again, I have to ask this too. I had struggles with heroin, and they teach you in AA you're never over it. You always have to say to remind yourself that once a junkie, always a junkie, and I'm a heroin addict. And the road. I tell you the truth, looking back at it, I don't know how I did some of the stuff I did, and thank God I'm still here. In knowing the Stones and being as close as anybody really could be to them, is Keith Richards? Is he clean right now?
Yeah, he's clean. I believe he's clean.
How long do you think that's been?
I think it's been a while. I think that he is, remember when he fell out of that tree, supposedly it wasn't exactly what happened.
Yeah, well, he
had to have brains.
Right.
You remember that?
Yeah, in Fiji, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't exactly that was how it was reported, that he fell out of a coconut tree, which made it sound ridiculous.
Right, I mean, what a
like
story.
He's like Curious George or something.
I've come up with bullshit stories. That's a good one.
But he did hurt his head. He had to have brain surgery, and I think it was serious. And I think since then he's got to be super careful. I don't think, so. I don't think, but the heroin, I believe he's been off heroin since that thing happened in Toronto, where he was charged with heroin trafficking.
That's 78. You're kidding me. You think so?
I do. I think he's done just off heroin. I think he's always been on a lot of other stuff since then.
No, I know, but heroin is very difficult. And you're talking about he got through the 80s without heroin.
I think so.
If that's true, it's unbelievable. It shows unbelievable.
It's interesting about the Stones, which is like there's a way to look at their history just by the drugs they were using.
Right.
So if you read about like the early Stones, which I really like, they were on amphetamine, man. They were on Reds.
Right.
Because then they took them just to stay awake.
Right.
It's like I have a quote in the book when Johnny Cash was arrested with like 800 tablets of Seconal, and he said he used to hear a little man say to him, "Go ahead and take another Seconal, John. You'll be fine. You'll be just fine."
I know that guy.
And then they go into LSD, and they have and according to Keith Richards, he sort of first took heroin by accident. He thought it was cocaine, and somebody handed it to him at a party. And
no shit. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, he says in the book he was flying high in the 70s on pharmaceutical grade coke. And I remember I did when I first started doing comedy, CBGB's had a comedy / improv club next to them that the woman Karen Crystal, Hilly Crystal's wife, got in the divorce, and she would have comedy shows, and I would work there doing stand-up. It's one of the first places I would work when I was like 23. I was driving a cab part-time, and that was the first place I was a regular, and I got to know a couple of the guys working at CBGB's, and one guy knew I was doing cocaine, and he said, I got coke from D.D. Ramone, and after the show, I said, shit, I'm gonna do Rockstar Coke. I'm telling you, Rich, I did 2 lines, a line and a half, and I walked from CBGB's to Penn Station in about 10 minutes. I was slapping my forehead with my hand, hugging homeless people. I don't know how Didi Ramon made it to the age he made it to, but
So that's good because everybody needs a hug, man, and that.
Right. Well, they got it. That's for sure. I was telling about my next project. But again, if that's true, man, that's one of the most fascinating things I've heard about the Stones. If after that Toronto bust, he's been off heroin, which is, we're finding out now through prints and everything. It's public. Opiates they become a part of you. You need them like you need air. And,
right.
That's impressive.
Look, I don't know. This is my sense. I could be wrong, obviously. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you're the guy. You would be the guy to ask. So the book. I want to end with talking about vinyl because I have so many questions. I watched every episode and I want to talk about it. But this book, dedicated and titled after a quote from Keith. What made you want to write about this specifically? And by the way, great job.
Thank you. I felt like, first of all, kind of everybody who had the experience I had, which was mostly people in the 70s, like STP, like you mentioned, and
right.
Those books, they wrote a book, and I never did write a book, and I couldn't figure out why. And I'm like, I know why, because my experience didn't end, continued.
Right.
And then I sort of sat back and I sort of thought, I'm a little bit older, like I said, I'm just basically your age, and this music, the Rolling Stones, and other bands, Springsteen, and it meant so much to me when I was growing up. I mean, I'd wait for those records. Is it in yet? Is it in yet? I'd read it. I remember when the first single would come out. I couldn't wait to hear it. And that kind of ended. And I couldn't figure out if it really ended or it was just that I got older, but I feel like it ended while I was working at Rolling Stone in the late 90s when Kurt Cobain died. I feel like that whole era ended and nobody had really stepped back and written the big story of this whole age, like what it meant, rock and roll, and how it started, that era ended.
Right.
And I felt like, in a lot of ways being younger is a disadvantage because I could hang out with the Stones, but I couldn't be a guy their age. You know what I mean?
Right.
I was 20, 30 years younger, whatever I am, and I'm a little brother, and I first heard the Stones through my brother's door, which was locked to me. He was up in the attic, So it's always like I'm at a remove, and I felt like that was actually an advantage because I could sort of step back and see the whole entire thing, and I felt like the whole entire thing had never really been written before, and I wanted to write it.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you, you capture a lot of interesting stuff in the sense that, you see why they lasted. Like the one part you point out where you're going back to Brian Jones, that Keith Richards and Mick Jagger were literally, when you go back to that legend of them meeting on the train when they were kids, and you say, God, what if Richards took a different train or something? Would the Stones have happened? And you write about how, as their songwriting got better, Brian Jones's confidence went away. And, that was the last wall in between, them not really being a songwriting team and the greatest songwriting team getting together. And as Jones went away, they were just so prolific. I mean, from you talk about waiting for the next song, album, the next single and everything. It's such a testament to the songwriting of like a guy like Bruce and them. It's rare. I mean, from 1968 to say like 81 or whenever when Tattoo You came out, Jagger and Richards, you're talking about arguably the best songwriting team ever. You really do a great job in the book of describing that and why that longevity was,
Well, I feel like they hit this golden run of the 4 records that are the 4 classic masterpieces of rock and roll.
The Jimmy Miller ones, obviously.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for it. I think the Beatles breaking up was really freed them too because they'd always been positioned as sort of the anti-Beatles in some way, even though they really weren't.
Right.
And they couldn't follow the Beatles. Satanic Majesty's Request was kind of a copy of Sgt. Pepper's. They got off of that. They started doing their own thing and found their own sound. And when you look at the early records, they would go in and, in a couple hours cut a song. And by the time they got to the late 60s and the 70s, they would just kind of live in the studio for weeks. And that guy, Chris Kimsey, said, well, some bands come in with a song and they work on it. The Stones would come in with an idea and then hunt for the song. And really the music came out of the friendship between Jagger and Richards. I mean, you read about how they worked together, which is like, Keith would usually write the lick, like 3 or 4, and then write the phrase, like, so he famously dreamed up the lick to Satisfaction and wrote Can't Get No Satisfaction, which Jagger said came from a Chuck Berry song, a line, Can't Get No Satisfaction from the Judge.
Right, okay, wow, yeah.
And then Mick would, fill it all in and finish it off, and it was like a pure collaboration based on being together all the time.
Man.
And if suddenly they're not hanging out together because they have different lives, just like what happens when you get older.
Yeah.
One guy's addicted to heroin, or the other guy's like hanging out at Studio 54 with, Halston or whatever.
And Ryan O'Neal is banging his Bianca.
Where's the music going to come from?
Right, I know. Right, exactly. With that, and that's a great point. But they did. You would think they would have lost the magic years earlier than they did. They really kept it together for a long time before that split actually happened. And that's what's most impressive about it. Something else I love in the book, you really, your description of Altamont is really great. And I learned, some new stuff here. Like Marty Ballin getting knocked out, Jefferson Airplane. The reason, you always say to me, I always say, why did he jump into the fucking crowd? He clearly jumps in. I didn't realize the Stones were beating up a black kid, and that's why he went in. I mean, the Hells Angels were beating up a black kid. If the Stones were, that'd be a big story. If they were beating up a black kid and he ran in to stop that, and they knocked him out.
Right.
And, how race played into that whole situation. But the fact that it's not discussed enough in history that Hell's Angel probably saved Mick Jagger's life. I mean, that guy was about to shoot Mick Jagger, and that was such a harrowing thing. They claim, I want to know if you agree with this, that's what got Richards on heroin. After Altamont, the depression is what got him hooked. Does he ever point to a reason that you know of, or is that the best known one in history?
I mean, it's almost like this change of eras from the 60s to the 70s, and Altamont, a lot of people, and they don't, because Altamont's such a terrible thing, they almost want to downplay it.
Right.
But if you talk to the people around him and everything, it's almost like Altamont was like the ultimate bummer. Yes. It was so awful that it's sort of like you just want to go up and lie down somewhere and die.
Yeah, it was the first time they didn't look cool. It was the first time they did, they looked like they fucked up, Well,
I always said sort of like Mick Jagger had been sort of playing the part of the devil for years. Right. In songs like Sympathy for the Devil, Play with Fire, he wore that Omega on his shirt like I am the, end of time, the Antichrist.
Yeah.
And he was hanging out with, the Aleister Crowley and Ken Anger and putting spell, and then suddenly he threw a big party and dressed as the devil, and the real devil showed up.
Yep. That's a good point. And the contrast in how violent the Hells Angels are and the Stones, just by their voices in Give Me Shelter. It's so funny. The Hells Angels are like, you're going out of here, you want to shut the fuck up, you don't hear any fucking music. And then you hear Jagger and Richards like, yo, guys, this is a bummer. They were brothers and sisters. If we're going to love each other, let's love each other.
And it's almost like Jagger had to step out of character.
Yep.
That's what was so devastating about it. He had to step out of character. But so one of the guys I talked to is Sam Cutler, who is kind of the road manager. You see him all over the movie Give Me Shelter.
Yep.
And what he told me, he said, and he's no real giant cheerleader for Mick Jagger because he has his complaints about him. But he sort of talks about how really courageous they were, which went against my idea of it, which is they kept playing because Jagger was sure that if they got off the stage, it would just be like open season on the Crowd by the Hells Angels.
And I got to tell you, they were right, I think. Absolutely right. Yep.
So they had to keep playing, and them being there was the only thing that was keeping the whole thing centered. And they came up to him, because in the movie, you see, Sam Cutler comes up and whispers something to Jagger, and I said, what did you say? And he said, I told him there's a guy out there with a gun pointing at the stage.
Man. Wow.
Yeah. And he said, I don't fucking care, I'm playing.
Wow.
And I said, what about Keith? What'd you whisper to him? He goes, same fucking thing. I'm like, what'd he say? Same fucking thing.
Yeah. They're badasses. That's the thing. They always live up to that. They are badasses, which is, something that a lot of show business types pretend to be and don't live up to. And, there's that whole story. I don't know how much you know if that is true or not, that the Hells Angels had a plot to kill Jagger, and they tried to do it by boat at his house in the Hamptons, and the boat sank or something.
Yeah.
If
you listen to, you can hear, it's interesting, like, it's really fun to read Sonny Barger's autobiography, which is really wild.
I'll get it tomorrow. I don't even know it existed. I can't wait. Yeah,
that would be a great book on tape. I don't know if it is on tape, but he talks about, he's very pissed at the Rolling Stones and everything, and he talks about how he called in the radio station, which is a famous interview, to give his side of it the day after Altamont.
Yeah.
And he said basically he did as much cocaine as he could handle, then called the radio station, and you can go YouTube it right now. He's like, and those Rolling Stones and that Mick Jagger played us for patsies, man.
Yeah, it's the beginning of the movie. And another great thing about the end of that call is the great Charlie Watts. When he opens his mouth, it's always a gem. Barger basically bashes Jagger for 10 minutes, like what you just said. He played us for that Mick Jagger, man. As far as I'm concerned, he played us for dupes, man. and bashes him, and then he hangs up, and there's a pause, and Charlie Watts goes, "Well done, Sonny." Which is fantastic. So I mean, again, the book is the Son of the Moon and the Rolling Stones, Rich Coen. You don't even have to be a Stones fan to enjoy something like this. It's amazing, and I fully recommend it. Okay, let's talk about vinyl. How does that start? You talk about a resume. You talk about a machine of murderers row involved with a project. You, Jagger, and Scorsese, and Terrence Winter, and Bobby Cannavale, who's amazing as the lead. How does this happen?
Well, basically, the creation of vinyl was sort of divided into 3 parts. So I really am the guy in the first part. That's what I can really talk about, which is, after I did those stories, then I got a call to ask, told me that Jagger and Scorsese wanted to make a movie, and when I want to talk to them about it.
Right.
Okay. At this point, I had written my first book, which was called Tough Jews, about Jewish gangsters in Brooklyn in the 1930s.
I read it. Unbelievable.
These were stories my father told me. Instead of telling me about like Little Bo Peep, he told me about Pittsburgh Phil Strauss killing people with an ice pick. That's what I grew up with.
The Jews were tough, man. Absolutely.
So, I kind of knew Jagger from the story. So I went and I met them, and basically what they were talking about at the time, they said they'd wanted to collaborate together for years, ever since Mean Streets.
Yep.
And what they wanted to do is they wanted to make a movie about the music business that would be like Casino in the music business.
Okay.
That was their model.
Right.
So they hired me to do it, and basically, mostly I worked with Scorsese, who was sort of teaching me how to write a screenplay, showing me old movies, working on scenes with me, and with Jagger was more like reading it over, telling stories, and setting up for me interviews with all these old-time record guys. And for about a year, I just went all around the country interviewing guys like Hi Weiss. He's the guy, he's mentioned in the pilot of Vinyl, the guy with with the
$100 handshake. Yeah.
He was a real guy who lived in Old Westbury, who famously hung a guy out a window to make him pay.
He's the White Suge Knight.
Yeah, he's a tough guy, way back. And like Jerry Wexler and Ahmet Ertegun, who started Atlantic Records and very close to Jagger, and Joe Smith, who actually, a record company, this is like huge in this show, which is a record company went out of business, and he looked at the catalog and he said, they have Van Morrison. Let me find out who owns it now. And he found that it was one of the New York crime families.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And he's like calling like the equivalent of the Ravenite 90 Club, like trying to buy this thing, and no one's answering the phone. And then somebody finally says, listen, we know you're calling, and we know what you want, and they don't know what it's worth, but they know you want it.
Wow.
So you have to get $100,000 in cash, whatever it was, and bring it to this warehouse on the west side. Jeez. And you give them the money, and they'll give you Van Morrison.
Man, that's well. Listen. Another some idiot interviewer will let you get away with this. Something you glanced over real quick when you were talking. But okay, Scorsese is teaching you how to write a screenplay. That's the movie equivalent of hanging out with the Stones and the songwriting.
Well, because they said, listen, I don't know how to write a screenplay. He goes, good, because screenplays suck. They're shit.
Well, describe that. What was that like? I mean, you're sitting down with Scorsese. I mean, Scorsese first of all had a coke problem. I don't know what that was like, because without coke, he talks a mile a minute. It's hilarious. What is that like?
He talks a lot about that, by the way.
Oh, he does?
That was about his drug problems, living with Robbie Robertson. And,
right.
What was it like? It was like we would be talking through scenes, ideas. He did it very slowly, and he would say, oh, my God, you got to see this movie. You got to see the big knife.
Wow.
You know,
Yeah.
you got to see it. So I always say that to my friends. You know, you got to see Bad News Bears Breaking Training. You got to see it. So anyway, then the next day I get a call from his office. Marty's arranged a screening for you to see The Big Knife.
Wow. See, that's what a guy with juice. That's what happens.
Yeah, you go to his office and you're sitting in the screening room, just you and the projectionist, and you try to sneak out to use the bathroom, and the guy's like, "Hey, you want me to stop the movie?" You're like, "Oh, I forgot."
That's fantastic. So that when you do something with someone with power and that kind of respect, it's just how the other half lives. It's tough to go back to watching it the normal way.
But the stuff he taught me was like simple stuff, like you don't even think about it, but the voiceover was hugely important, and it was hugely important in Goodfellas and in all Scorsese's movies.
He uses it brilliantly. Leone in Goodfellas is just a perfect tool, and it's
right. And by the way, he has this idea about the history of the voiceover in movies. So if you see a movie like what's that great movie with I'm gonna space out on it now. Little Caesar. You ever see the old gangster
with
movie?
Edward G. Robinson, yeah.
If you watch it, there's a lot of Goodfellas in it. The way they introduce the guys, like that's Johnny two times because it's everything two times.
That's right. That's funny. I never thought, because I haven't seen Little Caesar in a long time. But
yeah, it's really, and it's early. So he has like a historian's idea of like he's playing homage to all this different stuff. There's little references you would miss if you weren't completely, submerged in movie culture the way he is. But like, a little thing like, the dialogue, it's stupid, but the narration has to come after the thing. You have to see it first and then narrate it.
Wow.
Whereas when you write a story, it's almost the opposite. You kind of say it and then you show it. It's the opposite way.
Okay. Yeah.
And all the stuff, like one of my favorite things in Goodfellas is just in the background you see all the guys opening boxes and putting on these yellow sweaters.
Yeah, right.
Remember that?
Exactly, yeah. Fell off the truck. Yeah, they're all the same. And they're all wearing them at the end. I was a longshoreman for 2 years at the port in Newark. I worked on the orange juice pier, and it was at the tail end of that. It was when the wise guys were trying to get along with management, but there was still a little bit of that going on. Every once in a while, a guy would come around with a bunch of the same like tie-dye shirts.
Right.
Ocean Pacific. I got to ask you, I don't know what you can talk about or not, but obviously I'm a huge fan of Terrence Winter, and he was sort of publicly let go from this, or he quit, or I don't know what happened, and it's been picked up again for another season. I watched every second of it. Some people have been kind of harsh on it. I enjoyed it thoroughly. I can't wait. But can you talk about what went on with Terrence Winter and what happened?
I don't really know. I understand that basically critically it didn't really get the reception probably HBO wanted.
With that hybrid, with all you guys, I mean, it's almost impossible to live up to what HBO is going to want. And of course, they spent. I read a stat where it's $30 million for the 2-hour television pilot. Is insane. But what could get what they probably expected.
Right, and not only that. I mean, I love. There's two things critics say that I love, which is one is it's not a good show, but I watch it all the time.
Right, exactly.
And the other one is, hey man, it wasn't like that. I know because I was there. As if Mick Jagger and Martin Scorsese weren't there. Who was more there than those guys? They were there. They were alive.
Yeah. There's something else that critics always say that I think is wrong, and that's Artie Lang sucks. No, I don't know how hands-on. So the Terrence Winter thing is a creative thing you don't know much about. What happened with him?
Well, I mean, I knew that it happened. I knew what was going on, and I was surprised by it.
Right.
And I hope that, I don't know, from here I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope that it's great, and I hope the show goes forever and ever because, I'm a creator of it, so that'd be awesome.
Absolutely.
And, but it's like the world is such a good world, such an interesting, what went on back then is
endless.
sort of like...
Yeah, endless stories.
And we also saw it very much like originally, like Casino. The parallel was, there was kind of the Wild West era of Vegas, and then you think these guys are the biggest criminals, and then in come the big corporations, and they're like the real criminals. I mean, they shut everything down, know?
Right. That's what a good friend of mine and Danny's, Rob Barnett, had said to us that the radio consultants, they call themselves, were the real motherfuckers.
Right.
And, destroyed it. And having worked with Howard and seeing... it's so funny that my first job in radio was on the biggest radio show of all time, and what I got, what I didn't have to get exposed to because I had Howard protecting me is insane. Like I slowly found out what other people had to go through. I remember after being there for 6 months, I was doing really well, and I'd hit a stride. I'm making Howard laugh, and I'm thinking everything's going great. And Tom Chiasano, the GM, comes up to me and says, Art, some sponsors are saying we're scared of Artie. He says a lot of crazy, edgy stuff, and he's not Howard, doesn't have that power and fame, so just watch it. So now Tom says this, and I'm like, a million things are going through my head. Is that Howard talking to me through Tom? What do I do? So, something no one else in history would have the resources like this. I said to Howard, I said, I'm going to tell Howard and find out, because creatively I was, hedging. And when I told Howard, he got livid. He goes, fuck Tom, fuck it, go be edgier, be nuttier. Fuck Tom.
Right.
Why would he fuck with you? Stay away from Artie. And that's a rare thing to have. That for the first time I was working for a guy who all those idiots, like you're talking about, who ruined it, bowed to him. And
right.
It was fun to see that, that's what it became. But what an interesting rock and roll and radio, two unbelievably fascinating businesses
right.
with characters. The Dice Clay character representing, radio, and symbolically, you guys smashing it stolen into the ground. By the way, great performance by Dice. My God,
unbelievable.
Yeah, he almost outacts Cannavale, which is hard to do, and Cannavale is amazing. So I wish you luck with it, man, because I am someone who watched every second of it, and I happily. When do you think it'll come back? Do you know?
I don't think they're not really sure. I don't think, because I don't know. I just don't know. But it takes a long time to write a whole season of the show.
God, yeah. How hands on are you with it?
No, at this point I'm not.
Okay.
What I really worked on was the pilot.
Right. Okay.
Which was the movie. The pilot was the movie.
2 hours. Yeah. I mean, let me tell you something, dude.
It was a Scorsese movie.
Yep.
And it's got all the Scorsese themes, which is without the ending, because the ending is the show. But just like you said, it's like Scorsese's like this idea that it's just an idea I think he had growing up in New York. You're talking about, which is things used to be more interesting.
Oh, absolutely.
And then all the sort of managers and bankers came in and made everything gray and boring and the same. And it happened in the mob, and it happened in Vegas,
Yep.
and it happened in the rock and roll.
Right. Even the mafia got less interesting and sort of gayer in the way you would use gayer.
Yeah.
In the neighborhood. Exactly. I mean, could you imagine if I could go in a time machine and get one person in history and bring them back to do one thing? I would go back and get Carlo Gambino and sit him down and make him watch an episode of Mob Wives. He would probably go, who the fuck started telling broad shit?
I would tell him to stay out of Columbus Circle. Isn't that where he got shot?
Well, no, Gambino lived and died an old man. You're talking about...
Oh, no, I'm thinking of who's the guy who got shot with the cigar still in his mouth lying on the
you're talking about the guy, the Paramount guy who was protesting, Columbo.
Yeah, that's right, Columbo.
Yeah, Columbo got shot. Carlo Gambino died an old man in a row house in Brooklyn, didn't spend a minute in jail, with probably $800 million in the basement because he never said anything. He just kept quiet with a...
Right, that's what I always said. Like Meyer Lansky, it's like a friend of mine wrote this story about grizzly bears, and he said, a bear in the newspaper is a bear in big trouble.
Right, exactly. I mean, God.
Sort of like Lansky got that. You get in it, like his Bugsy Siegel's always getting pressed. He's like, that's the worst. Once you get pressed, you're dead.
Right, Bugsy started that, and then, of course, Gotti was the king of it, And,
yeah.
I'll ask you one more thing, Rich, and I'll let you go. It's kind of an overall generality, but it's something that I think, you might share an opinion on, that I have on it. Are we being old fuddy-duddies like every other generation when we say music isn't as cool and stuff isn't as cool in general, stuff got more boring? Or is that really true? Is the generation gap really that big now? I don't think we're being harsh on the new music and everything and the new generation. I think the world's gotten nicer. God bless political correctness. A lot of great things happen because of it. But like New York losing its grit, the edge has gone out of comedy and music, and it'll never be the same again. And that depresses me. And I'm vocal about it in my comedy. And some young kids say, "Are you being like every other generation?" I don't think this is like every other generation. I think it's really that way. Do you agree?
Right. Well, this is something that I struggled with because I came with the premise that rock and roll basically died in the late '90s.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, is this because I'm getting old, or is this? But then I think, first of all, when I was a kid driving around, my father did not like rock and roll at all. And I would say to him, God, how could you have not, gotten into Elvis? I mean, you were the right age.
Right.
And he'd say, why? Because I had to earn a living. I didn't have time. I was feeding you assholes. I didn't have time.
That's interesting. Exactly. Yeah, like my mother and Bob Dylan are the same age, and God, are they different.
But I would listen to his music, and his music wasn't my music, but I still loved it. It was still obviously cool, and it was Sinatra.
The Frankie
It was
Valli,
great. It was great music. I wanted him to like my music. He wouldn't listen to it, but I knew his music was good, even though it wasn't my music.
Right.
And the music now, for the most part, with obvious exceptions, there's great bands, but the whole idea that this thing is developing and changing, and everyone's looking to do something new and push it and push it and push it, it's dead. I think. And there's a couple of reasons why. One is just the technology, because once you had the long play, at the beginning the Stones just made singles and B-sides, and their early records were just collections of their singles.
Yep.
And then somebody realized, we have this long record, it could be like a movie.
You could tell a story like Bruce
You could tell a story like Darkness on the Edge of Town,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what became important to us, like the whole statement of the thing. And then, once you have the MP3 and it's all about singles again, that just dies because people are taking one song off of it. I mean, how many times when you were a kid did you get a record and you love one song and then you listen to it 100 times and you discover, no, this is my favorite song.
Yeah.
No, this is my favorite song. You didn't like it the first time. You had to listen to it a whole bunch of times and then you slowly opened up to it. So that kind of all ended, and I think the technology kind of really killed it. And also, I do think to some extent, like political correctness. Now, everybody's a cop.
Yeah.
So basically, Brown Sugar. Could they write Brown Sugar now with those lyrics? Could they have that on the radio?
When you really sit back and listen to the lyrics of Brown Sugar, probably not. No.
And that's true for a whole bunch of Stone songs.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
could you have them singing, these guys singing, "You Can Make a Dead Man Come" on Top 40 radio?
The people would get so uptight. And look, I know it being in comedy, again, is it a good thing that, people are nicer and more tolerant? Yeah. But does that work in comedy all the time? No. So comedy, I tell you, young kids, David Tell, another great comic, and I were talking about this recently outside the Comedy Cellar, we're the same age, and these kids who are 23 years old, if you say black guy instead of African American in a joke, they look at you like you're raping their cat, and they're not prepared for what they're about to hear, and,
right?
And they don't hear what they don't hear is context, and that's why I love doing this podcast. I don't have advertisers for a reason, and the people that pay are the ones that don't care. But I can't agree with you more. The technology merged with the new hip-hop, whatever type, the voice enhancer thing, autocorrect, whatever the fuck it is, all that combined with the technology, the way you deliver it, and not being able to tell a story, I think that combination creates a bigger generation gap than Sinatra and the Woodstock generation. I think it's the biggest ever. And it's hard to talk to a young person sometimes because you're not
right. And that thing you're talking about, like, I know it obviously, but just like one of the guys I've talked to was this guy Daryl Jones, who's the bass player who replaced Bill Wyman.
Yep.
And he played with Miles Davis. He's a jazz bass player, and I asked him, like, well, how good of musicians are they? And they are good musicians, but he's like, but you know what, this is rock and roll, and perfect ain't perfect. It's got to be a little messed up,
Oh, absolutely, yeah. That's what happens. Comedians nowadays are afraid to take risks because they have a perfect 7 minutes that is letter perfect. That's a set they can do on the Tonight Show, and it's clean. And if they veer off on that, they might get a bad review on Twitter. So what happens is they don't write anything fucking new because they can't try anything new.
And not only that, like, as a comedian, and as a writer, it's the same thing. You only get to the good stuff by making an ass of yourself a whole bunch of times.
You have to. And look, it's the loneliest feeling in the world. And I've been doing stand-up on and off since I'm 19, so that's almost 30 years. And, if you don't bomb every once in a while, that means you're not working. You're not writing new stuff, and you got to take a shot. And again, I'll leave you with this. To me, Born to Run, and the story that Born to Run Into Darkness on the Edge of Town tells will never happen again with any of the groups. Like Born to Run represents those kids with nothing but hope getting the fuck out of town, and Darkness is they all didn't make it and they're back, and my baby cried.
You know what I always thought of about Springsteen? Actually, I had this big idea, which was he in his early songs he's got like all the amusement parks. It's always the rides.
Yep.
And like by Darkness at the Edge of Town, the rides have become the factory towers. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's exactly a great point. Absolutely, yeah.
It's like the machines and the spires. It's just
the song Factory reminds me about my old man. And my father. He was a cool guy. My father actually liked some of the Doors songs and big Elvis guy and Frankie Valli, of course, but never totally got into rock and roll. I didn't understand it, but. He fell and he was a quadriplegic for 4 years. And one day, for no reason, he said to me, I was going to see Springsteen. And I told him, and he goes, I like Springsteen. I said, you do? I said, why? He goes, because he's for the working man. And then he fell asleep. All right. He kind of got it. Rich, listen, man, I'd love to make this a semi-regular thing. I love talking to you about if certain things come out. Certainly when vinyl comes back, if you want to promote or whatever, I'd love to have you back.
Anytime. I'd love to do it. It's a blast.
This was fantastic. The book, again, The Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones by Rich Coen. That's a quote by the great Keith Richards. And there's great shit in here, man. If you got a chance to read something by Rich, check it out. He's great. And I wish you luck, my brother, and I'll talk to you hopefully down the road.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Rich Coen. And again, great book, great writer. And again, I like to check with guys like that who are about. It's so funny. I'm older than him. It's hilarious. But not by much. But it's so funny. Like I said, with gambling, the first time I realized that I was really making myself sick gambling was when I had a bunch of money on a college basketball game, and I realized I didn't have money to buy a car because a bunch of younger kids lost me the money. A bunch of people younger than me, kids I would spit on in the old days, are losing me fucking money. They can't do a high pick and roll. But I was trying to ask him about that whole thing, and Danny, I don't know what your thoughts on this are. If we are like being a typical older generation, like it's happened forever, our music's better than yours. I really think this is the first generation where, no, we're right. Our music is better. Or it was funkier, it was edgier, it was riskier. It wasn't as neat and clean. Like, I mean, that's what that's obvious to me, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's not even close.
You got to be a little dangerous. Like Dan.
Yeah.
I got to say, Dan and I are the perfect contrast. We cannot be more. Dan does everything by the book, and sometimes it affects life. I had a big meeting today, about, the stuff that might affect this podcast. And I get out of the shower, and I go to get my keys, and I see Dan's keys, and I realize Dan has my car. And I'm like, why? Why do you have my car? And because he never has my car. Whenever he leaves, he takes Uber, whatever. And I call him, and he's like, he had to go get some money for me. And he goes, well, I had the cash. I said, what? You had the cash? What are you talking about? Well, I don't want to think. Well, give me the line of thinking. I got to say, Dan, you're a tough guy. That's the wussiest fucking move. What were you were afraid what was going to happen? An Uber guy would steal your money? Why did you take a private car? Because you had money on you? What was going to happen? Please tell me. My head's going to explode. And, of course, I was late, a half an hour late. Directly because of Dan. I was a half an hour late for this meeting. The guy had an attitude in the meeting, which gave me an attitude. It did not go well. And then I had to Uber back. I was in traffic. I got out of the car in frustration because I was at the light over here. I'm trying to eat my quarter pounder with cheese with fries, large Coke, a full number 3 meal. Juggling, whatever the fuck. Dan's keys, not my keys, because he's got my keys. Ketchup all over me. I look ridiculous. That's right. I have an image to protect. You think people expect to see Artie Lang with ketchup all over him? It could be blood. I could have stabbed myself again. People don't know what the fuck's going on. They have to smell me. They go, that's good. You smell like a quarter pounder with cheese. All right, that's ketchup. Laugh it up, pal. Dan's here, safe and secure. You're like one of those safe pussies in the safe place. A chick does that. Girlfriends have done it. I'm going to take the car because I'll have some cash and it'll just be safer. What the fuck? I want you to explain to me the thought. What happened? Explain it to me, please. And the audience. You owe us both an apology. Go right ahead.
I apologize to you already.
Well, tell me what your thinking was exactly. You had cash.
I have never gone.
What was going to happen?
I have never gone to your accountant's in an Uber.
So what the fuck does that mean? You know I had to go somewhere. A major meeting I told you about. And where was the iPad you were going to leave me?
Huh?
The iPad.
I said as I was walking out, you go, you got to go now. You got to go now. I said, what about the iPad?
I thought you were just going to leave it on the fucking table.
No, I didn't. I had to set it up. I didn't know I was going to go to France.
I thought you were setting it up.
It was 2 hours.
Holy Christ, the excuses. Do you hear what I
sent?
Do you hear what I do with him?
I sent every link to your agent.
The tolerance I have. I could not be a better person.
It was a lot of money.
What a pussy. What a pussy. He's not going to say it out loud because he knows how faggy it sounds. So I'm going to say it out loud. He goes, well, I had a lot of money. I don't want to, be with an Uber. So Dan, so the scenario is what? The Uber guy is going to somehow know you have money. What were you going to tape the money to your fucking forehead? The Uber guy was going to know you have money, and with the dash cam that they all have, we know that from watching CNN. Everything's on tape. They were going to go, hey, give me the money, pussy. And you would have cowered, I guess. Oh, of course. I read in the pamphlet, in New York, an aggressive Uber driver, do not challenge him. I have it right here, sir. I'll read the handbook. This is why I'm not challenging you. You can pull over. I'm not going to try to call the police. I won't signal. I won't try to fight myself because I'm not a fighter. I'm a rich kid. I grew up very wealthy, and this is what they said, listen, if a poor person attacked you, you're not tough. You're a rich person. You just have the car that we gave you. You asked if you could drive you to that car that we gave you for free. And, you go right back to the rich house, and you tell the nanny what happened. You say, the Uber driver took my money. And the nanny will bathe you. And then you'll go swim naked with your friends. Your black friend, Stan Hooper. Stan Hocknott, who's really white.
Stan Lawrence.
According to Dan, very white guy. A lot of white features. And I asked Dan, talk about racism. Why is he white? He goes, well, he had pens on him. What? He had a pen holder.
He was an engineer.
Okay, yeah, that's very white. Most racist thing I've ever heard. So, I want it out of your mouth, though. Why did you had to get a few $1,000s? What the fuck? You're a rich kid. That's nothing to you.
Yeah.
Let me explain it to me.
What do you want me to explain?
I want you out of your mouth to go what you were afraid of. What were you afraid of?
I wasn't afraid of anything.
Clearly you were.
I always, if I go to France.
I didn't know that. Who knows that, by the way? I don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Art, I'm leaving you my keys.
Dan, I was running around like a chicken without a fucking head, getting ready with, and I know what you're talking about. Keys, yeah. Blah, blah, blah. Who listens to you? I know what the fuck you're talking about. I thought maybe, for some reason, and I thought maybe you'd leave me the car key, because that's always what happens. I take the car. You think I want to Uber to a big fucking meeting in New York? You know I like to have my car in New York. It's a meeting that affects the both of us. I think you secretly don't want this to succeed.
Oh.
Because it's another career triumph for me. And again, you're playing second fiddle. And again, like Chicago, you're second city, and you don't want this to, you go, I know what I do. I'll pretend I'm a pussy, and I'm afraid I have money on me, so I will not let him take his car. I'll say, I want the car for safety purposes. How is it safer? What was to say, Dan, that someone would saw you in the Range Rover, a ne'er-do-well, and said, that's a rich car. I'm making the guy African-American. Doesn't mean all ne'er-do-wells are African-American. I thought it was more entertaining. It could be a white guy. It could be an Italian-American. It could be Irish. It could be waspy. I'm making him African-American in the story. Don't buy into this, PC Police. Don't read into it. This is a fictional account of what could have happened to Dan. I'm not saying that I think all criminals or the aforementioned ne'er-do-wells are in fact African-Americans. The accent I'm doing, by the way, Doesn't have to be African American. It could be a white person who talks like, "What's up?" And there's a lot of them now. Justin Bieber, case in point. So here's what can happen. And here's the scenario.
I almost didn't come back here.
Yo, look at that motherfucker in the Range Rover. That motherfucker must have bank. I mean, he's dressed like shit, but you know what? A lot of them rich motherfuckers, I read this, a lot of the ones in Chicago, them Chicago faggots. You know what they do? They dress like a retarded homeless person. And that's what that motherfucker, they put them knee-high white socks over their yellow feet and calves with their thick black hair.
And their Cubs hat.
So disgusting. And their elite Cubs hat. Go game with the fucking Ku Klux Klan people who own the place. Yeah, they love that fucking.
I almost didn't come back here.
Yeah, you should have.
Do you know why?
Because you're a fag.
Do you know why?
Why?
Because on this whatever street that is by the Hoboken train station, there was really bad traffic, and you were going one way and I was going the other, and I could see the look on your face. I'm like, oh fuck.
What are you talking about? You saw me?
Yes, in the thing, and I tried.
In my Uber car?
I beeped. It wasn't even an Uber
car. No, it was a gypsy cab. That's illegal. It was Muhammad fucking Atta. Why don't you come pick me up, dickweed? Wait, you could have picked me up. You could have said, hey, come out. But no. I'm in my safe place. Dan, that's it. Dan was in his safe place. You fucking little Northwestern Brown University scum fuck. That's what you essentially did. You got in your safe place. Listen, all right, it's a lot of cash. And listen, I know you don't live this way. You live reckless. And a lot of heterosexual men live reckless. But Rick Steves said this. One of my favorite Rick Steves episodes.
It didn't fit in my money belt.
Oh my God. One of my favorite Rick Steves episodes was, listen, if you can't hide the cash in your lederhosen, what you want to do is take a friend's Range Rover. That's your safe place. Because a lot of these ne'er-do-wells will not come near you. But they will. That's the irony. Dan, you would. I know that offends you, Dan. I know you're in your safe place. I'm in my safe place and he burped. Can you believe that, Dr. Schoenstein? Dr. Schoenstein? Nurse Ratchet, I want my Range Rover. I want my Range Rover, Nurse Ratchet. I want my SUV. Nurse Ratchet.
And I hid your cigarettes.
You're a dick. Yeah, I don't smoke cigarettes. I'm very safe. What, we gonna live another fucking 8 more years than me and with this boring life? Jesus Christ. Holy fuck, when I die, you're basically a chocolatier's husband. I'm Mr. Chocolatier. That's right. I'm Mr. Chocolatier. That's what I do. I feel invisible. We're walking the brown carpet. And they say, and who's this? Miss Chocolatier. Who's this with you? Is this an assistant? Why is he wearing green sweatpants pulled up to his knees with white socks over his yellow thighs and calves with disgusting black hair, jet black hair like a forest, and slippers like a retarded person? Why is he wearing that? And who is he? This is my husband, Dan, and he's in a safe place right now, so don't threaten him. I have money on me, so I just, So the ne'er-do-well says, yo, man, look at that Range Rover. I'm a fucking Papa got bank over that motherfucker. Let's get over it. Yo, motherfucker, how's that Rover doing, bitch? Listen, I'm in my safe place. We can talk this out. Come on, I'm a chocolatier. I know your color. I speak your color. You're a chocolate person. I'm a chocolatier. Why your face got madder? I'm sorry. Was that offensive? Listen, I know you understand this. I'm in my safe place. So can you please not bother me? And I definitely do not have money on me. There's no way. I don't know what you're thinking. This is my friend's Range Rover, and I'm protecting it till the death. And I'm in my safe place, so please don't say something racist. Don't say something homophobic, even though I'm not gay. Don't say an anti-Rick Steves thing. Who the fuck is Rick Steve? Well, I don't know if you know anybody who can haggle well at little restaurants and on the Amalfi Coast. Shut the fuck up! Give me your money. I don't have any money. Give it to me. All right, it's right here. Here it is. I'll have to tell Artie, I did give up a fight. I thought, did I not say the first time no? But you pressed me. You got me in the corner. Even though I told you I had a safe, I know I'm crying. Are you crying, motherfucker? I know, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm a rich kid. I don't know how to deal with this. I know the plight of the African Americans. I'm voting for Elizabeth Warren. Who the fuck is Elizabeth Warren? He says, oh, she loves you people. Oh, she's so anti-Trump. Can I show you some of her texts? No, get the fuck away. I follow her. Here. Can I just tell you my favorite NPR moment? Do you listen to NPR? Shut the fuck up. You NWA? No, NPR. NPR. Niggas with attitudes? No. Nigger Public Radio. I mean national. You made me say that. You made me say that. What'd you just fucking say? Nigger Public Radio. What's your wild? I'm gonna knock the fucking green sweatpants off your retarded ass. Look at those yellow feet. Give me your slippers. I'm in my safe place. And I protected this money. Oh, why didn't I not? Why did I take the car and draw attention to myself? Because secretly I want to have Artie's life. When I drove the Range Rover, I said, for a little while I'm Artie. For a little while I'm going to Artie's accountant. And it's my accountant. Artie, I asked Artie just to be more authentic. Because I am a thespian. I sell Adler. I studied with Stella. I want to know, what's the exact parking spot you park in at your accounts? I want to be you. And I'm going to go get money and give money, deposit money. I'm going to be a success on my own. For once, it's not Dad's money. It's not Daddy's money. It's my money. What the fuck are you talking about? You're talking to yourself. Well, you took my money. What do I do? Please leave me with something. Something. Can I get fare for the bus or something? I know some of you people are on the bus. And quite frankly, I'll sit in the back to make room in the front. Please. Do you like Maya Angelou? I have her on my phone. Do you like poems? Are you a Cubs fan? Would you like season tickets? Sure, I don't give a shit about baseball. White ass. Okay, I'm sorry. What are you guys into? Hoops? Oh, you like the hoops? Do you want? I knew Michael Jordan. I hit a home run at Wrigley Field. Damn fucking Dad. Jesus Christ. I want you to say it. Why did you take my Range Rover and leave me with nowhere to fuck the one fucking meeting I gotta have that fucking genius Dorfman gets me? Oh, Jesus Christ. Sitting there, listening to two fucking comedy fucking gurus. Tell me about the fucking the Dungeons and Dragons podcast. These guys have a. They describe me. Yeah, real successful podcast. Guy named Dan. I forget the guy's name. Dan something. Dan Brubaker. I don't know what his name is. Yeah, Dan Brubaker. Have you heard of it? No. Well, yeah, probably like in the top 10 podcasts. He's unbelievably more successful than you. Just way more relevant and just quite frankly smarter and funnier. Northwestern kid. Great stuff. A lot of friends with beards. And no, that's their wives. No. Yeah, no, they're very masculine. Yeah, the whole thing is they basically they play Dungeons and Dragons on stage. Yeah, great stuff. And then they banter, of course. It's hilarious. And we have that type of stuff. You do anything like that? I look at Dorfman. I'm like, Dorfman, that's my new manager, by the way. New character on the show. Dorfman. Slimy Greenberg. I go, Dorfman, like, what are you doing? You told me that these guys wanted to just, animate what I say on the fucking podcast. Like, in other words, what I was told these people were going to do, and they got big money. It's a company backed by NBC. They got big money. CISO is her name. CISO. C with a slash so. I don't know what the fuck that means. There's probably some cute story behind that. Fucking Jeff Zucker had a fucking barbecue and just fucking beloved dog farted and made a sound like Ciso or some shit. There's always a story. And that's why we named it Ciso. Yeah, I thought, like what I just did with Dan talking to the ne'er-do-well, they would animate that. It would be Dan in my Range Rover. And you cut to me in a gypsy cab and Dan snickering, laughing at me in my gypsy cab because he ruined the day. And he ruined the meeting with the CISO guys. Do you realize, Dan, we could be the time slot after Dungeons and Dragons? We would have the primo, like, Thursday night after Friends CISO time slot. Yeah, we would have the slot, man. After fucking Friends, dude, on a Thursday. But no. You got to ruin my mood for the meeting and make me late after I canceled once. The guy didn't look at me once in the meeting. He kept looking at Slimy Dorfman. Dorfman wears the same sport jacket to every fucking meeting. I'm like, mix it up a little. Guy's got JB Smooth money. So, and Brewer, too. What the fuck? And I'm very disconcerting. Disconcerted at the meeting. I don't know if they like me. They're not looking at me. They're being very condescending. And the other thing Dorfman does that Dan always does. Big fan of yours. You just let me hang with Rich Coen, by the way. He was not a big fan.
Yes, he was.
Dan goes, I hate when motherfuckers do this. Dan is the worst. Agents and managers do it, and sometimes producers do it, and Dan is the king of it. The king. Since the old days. I know you're in your safe place, but you're going to catch shit right now. Go back in your bubble, Travolta.
There's no safe place.
You go, there is. It's in my fucking car.
Call him back.
It's in my car.
Call him back.
Dan, he didn't. I threw out references.
True.
I threw out references to my career, and he's like, "There's dead air, silence."
That's not true.
I went fishing for compliments. Nothing.
That's
I came up with guppies. I'm like, back when I was on Mad TV. Cricket. Dan sets me up.
No, that
I look
is
like
not
a
true.
boob. I look like a boob. Back in the Stern days, cricket.
No,
Cricket.
that is so not
He
true.
did.
Let's call.
He's heard of Howard Stern, but
Let's
not
call.
me.
All that cash.
I don't want to fucking call. I want to go to bed.
That cash, you want to bet it?
I want to get a
Double or
fucking. I
nothing.
want to get that Russian hooker who broke my bed. I want her back. The one who looked like Pete Rose. A couple of summers ago, I fucked a hooker that I met at a club, a strip club. I won't say the name of the club. That would be indiscreet. Rhymes with mace. Leather and mace. Next to a comedy club up by Nyack over there. Adrian and I were broken up. We were. And, I was very depressed. I threw about fucking 82 gin and tonics down this broad throat. One of those $82 strip club gin and tonics. You are a comedian? So many people in the bartender, the bar back say, you are a comedian? You get on the stage? I don't know what accent I'm doing, but we're going to go with it. You get on the stage, you make some money for the rent by taking the jokes. You are a comedian? That's very interesting. You travel around, you see the country, telling the jokes. Tell me the jokes. Tell me the joke. Tell me the joke. I said, what nationality are you? I said, I'm Italian. What are you? She goes, Russian. I said, what's your hurry? Oh, I get the joke. So funny, the joke. Because the word Russian, you make it sound like the other word Russian. That's a phone in my house. I guarantee it's my mother asking something in her safe place.
It's here. It's this.
Well, pick it the fuck up, then.
Hello?
Is it my friend?
No.
Yes, it was. Who was it?
Nobody. It was one of those calls with a. It had a beep on it, so it was one of those robocalls.
What's a robocall?
Hey.
I don't give a shit. Shut up. Hey, what? Jesus.
Tomorrow.
Don't think I didn't forget your fagginess.
New Jersey schools.
Okay, I get it. You tell us the jokes. Okay, tell us one jokes. Russian. Tell me another jokes. Oh, actually, I'm glad you asked. I'll take another gin and tonic. You have the cocaine. You have any sniff? You have the sniff? I've had the sniff. You have the pick me up?
Oh, God.
Can we buy the pick me up? What are you doing, Dan? What are you doing with the phone? You're doing something weird.
Nothing. I'm going to turn off the ringer.
Well, go ahead. What are you trying to hide it from me? What are you doing? What are you doing?
I didn't want to interrupt you, so I'm turning off the ringer.
Well, what are you doing? Put it up where you doing it in your crotch? You playing fucking pocket pool over there? Dan gets this creepy look on his face. It's me and him in the fucking place. The cat's out of the bag. He takes the phone, he puts it down his crotch. He's looking at me like, what? You look like Bichetti trying to change the weather report. Did you do it? Did you change the fucking ringer? Are we done?
Yes.
Oh. Jesus Christ, I'm in fucking hell. You tell some jokes. You say I look like Sir Pete Rose. Sir Charlie Hustle. Yes, I do. You want to do your dance? I'll give you your dance. $40 dance. Oh, they say you're a comedian. Fair you perform. Oh, it's a beside. The comic strip. You say it's a comic strip. Oh, I live by there. I live with 18 other strippers. And Gino Bisconti. Actually, it's a big commune in a big abandoned tenement. Your rent is $18 a month. If we all chip in, there's 16 of us. Gino bounces your check. He always wakes us up. We have some late night. He wakes us up giving his picks. But he always tells us jokes. Oh, his jokes about your football. Oh, they make us all laugh. Gino Bisconti. Yes. Sometimes I give him a freebie sexy.
Oh, God.
And he makes me call him his Aunt Olga. I say, in this scenario, you're Aunt Olga? Yes. He likes me to say, oh, Aunt Olga, I have sex with you. And it costs extra money. I say, you're going to get extra money now. You want extra money now? Yes. I've had extra money now. Wait a minute. You know what? There's breaking news about Donald Trump. Oh, my God. I'm in this clip, I think. There's a clip of him on Howard Stern that Hillary Clinton dug up. Oh. Where he's talking about how he womanizes.
Uh-huh.
And I'm in the clip, I think, egging him on. Oh, my God. I hope I'm not in that clip. But I recognize it. Howard's got the hair when I was there, and it's that K-Rock. Oh, my God.
That's the Hillary Clinton commercial.
There's the E channel. I miss her jokes. I miss a Hillary Clinton commercial. Are you into Hillary Clinton Superback? Are you Superback? I heard that. Where's your friend Dan? Shave place? Yes, that chick, I told her to come to the comic strip, and it's like when you kill, it's like an aphrodisiac. And I just told her, thank God I'm at the level where I call the comic strip. I'm like, I'm just coming in. I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear what Millennial is doing his YouTube bit. Tell Sparky he's getting the fuck off stage. Okay? A guy who's on the Mount Rushmore of Mount fucking the comic strip. A guy who's the fucking reason comedians don't drink for free there. The guy Lucian who ran the comic strip in the early 90s had a if you were a comic and you had a set that night on the books, you drank for free. I would go on a Monday night, there'd be 4 people there. I'd do a 15-minute set. I'd sit there and drink top shelf liquor till 4 a.m. Hookers would come in. This black hooker I fucked a couple times with a and she blew me. And a cheetah fucking disgusting cheetah jacket that I came on. Hey, baby. You put an extra white spot on my cheetah. Her name was Brenda. That was her fucking stripper name. I'm confident she's dead of full-blown AIDS. There'll be no lawsuit. I'll tell you, jet black, though, skin, open sores look fine on that.
Oh, God.
They actually look like a nice rouge. Hey, baby, that's my open sore.
Oh. God.
Yeah. Yeah, we're getting edgy tonight. I'm angry. Is Schubert back? Yeah, so I fucked a couple summers ago. My bed was broken. This chick, this Russian chick, she had an amazing body, like one of those ballerina type bodies. She was good at the Nutcracker, I'll tell you that. I thought she was a Nutcracker. You see the open shores on the jet black stripper?
Oh.
I tell you, your black skin is very sensual. I wish I had your black skin. Yeah. So I invited the comic strip. I kick, millennial moron off the stage. The millennial falcon. I say, fly away, dickbag. And I do 20 minutes of non-risky tried material from fucking 1982 that I know will kill. Because you got to kill in front of a broad. She goes, I get on stage, and I know it's working. She goes, oh, that was so funny. So people love you, and so people laugh at you. And you get paid your money for that. That's how you make your money? You don't have to just, like, stick your ass in a fucking disgusting pig's face like yourself? No, I just tell the jokes, baby. Wow. That's so funny. You have some power here. Huh? You go right on your stage. Oh, that's wonderful. Do you live by here? Threw a couple of J&Ts down there, baby. G&Ts. Took her back here. She rode me. Oh, my God. You have such a nice view. I love the view of the city. You have shitty view. Shitty view? I thought you liked it. No, shitty view. It's not a shitty view. It's a nice view. No, shitty view. And then I did like an Abbott Costello. I knew she was saying shitty view. But we got into a really funny bit. How dare you say it's a shitty view? No! You misunderstand. Shitty view. You said that. I love your shitty view. Well, now you're not making any sense. Well, you like that I don't have a good view? You're rooting against me? No! You misunderstand. C-I-T-I-E. Shitty. Now you sound retarded. You're making my heads explode.
How old would Natty have been?
Same age as Pete Rose.
Oh, God.
No, she was about, age appropriate, 38ish. Who knows what the fuck she was? I don't know. Old enough to. Fuck! Come on! What's the matter? I can't hear myself. What happened? Can you hear me?
Yeah, your mic is on.
No, it ain't.
To. Yes, it is.
I fucking went out. Motherfucker! Here's me on fucking Stern again. What happened here? Am I in the super back? Fucker! Got the Impala up my ass. Shut down lemons on your CNN. Sasha, fuck. Oh, that's a catch right there. I heard he doesn't go my way. Like Sir Anderson Cooper Pooper Stooper. Yes, she rode me. Rode me like the fucking rhino I am. But she was biting her hair, that type of thing. Fantastic. And, boom, it hit the fucking ground. The whole thing hit the ground. Like it was balsa wood or something. Fucking, God knows what I put $4,000 fucking bed, mahogany bullshit. Some fucking, fucking salesman, who put it this way. Not exactly a sports fan. Yes, this bed, it's like a bulkhead down the shore, baby. Oh, I break your bed. That's my specialty. Extra $500. I did what? Now my fucking phone's ringing. Dick bag, dick lick. Look, Dan fucking lucked out. I was about to lace it. We're getting to the bottom of this. What a pussy. I just can't, I was talking to the ne'er-do-well. Yo, motherfucker, what's your money? Listen, I'm in my safe place. Can you please just respect that? Please respect that. Please. I know. You got money on you, motherfucker. Yeah, I know, but again, I know your plight, the 400 years of slavery and the busing.
I'm with you. You know, I'm a liberal. I marched with Dr. King. I did. I was only 8 years old, but shut the fuck up.
Billie Jean King, I marched.
But you see how unfunny I am? You see, my mic is on to say something unfunny. My goal is to make the show horrible because I hate Artie. I'm jealous of him. So if I say something unfunny like Billie Jean King, that makes no sense. Again, I just broke into a great bit and I threw Artie's mind off because that's what I do. That's what I fucking do. Who the fuck is Artie? You're making no sense, motherfucker. You sound like you're off the chain. You're off the red. Yes, I know about all your slogans. Off the chain, off the. I know groovy. Can I say you're groovy? Can I say your shirt's groovy? Give me your sneakers. I don't have sneakers. I have slippers on. They're orthopedic. They're orthopedic sneakers. You can't take them. I have my ankles are yes. I know I have cankles. I have kidney issues. Shut the fuck up, a kidney, you frail pussy ass motherfucker. I live with a chef and my chocolatier wife. It's a long story. The chef is an enormous fat person, and he gets remnants of crap on the bowl, and I have to clean it.
Oh.
I have 5 Brussels Griffon dogs. What are you, a fag? No, people say that. A lot of straight men have 5 little Brussels Griffons. A lot of men have a magenta polo shirt that they wear for jogging. Man, you sound like a fruit. There's no reason for that. I mean, look, we're all friends here. Let's just be together. My friend had sex with a Russian stripper recently. It's a rainbow coalition. Yo, man, this guy's got to you take your money back. Just shut the fuck up. Stop talking. I'll give you my money. Listen, take all your money back and I'm going to give you $30 to shut the fuck up. Well, that's not necessary, but I'll use this for charity. It's unbelievable. I somehow got a mugger to give me money. This is wonderful. How did I do that? By being the most annoying fuck on the planet. You know, honestly, take my change, take my watch. I'd shut up. Oh, that's unbelievable. You know what? I'll hawk. Where do I hawk this? I know you know about those places. I don't know about any of the. I don't know about your world. Take me into your world. What does that mean? What does that mean on your bandana? It says Crip. What does that mean? I'm wearing a red scarf. Is that gonna have a problem? I have a problem. Oh no! As a matter of fact, yeah, wear the red scarf. That's fine. Great. You got another red? You got something else red? Yeah, wear that in my neighborhood. Yeah, that'd be great. Well, that's fine. I have a lot of red color schemes. I have a red belt that goes with some white shoes. I have. That's great. Just shut the fuck up, please. Now you got $30 and you got my watch. That's wonderful. Thank you. You know what? I'll sell the watch to somebody. I know somebody on Madison Avenue in New York. I visit New York a lot. Do you like Paris this time of year? Shut the fuck up. Here's my friend's sneakers. Your friend's sneakers. These are wonderful. Are these the Air Jordans? Jordan? Air Jordan? The French player? I'm going to shoot myself in the fucking head right now. Oh my God, wow, that's wonderful. He sacrificed his life. That's the story of Dan. The most annoying person, a guy tried to mug him, ended up giving him his money and his watch and then shot himself in the head. The most annoying victim in the history. Listen, I think I turned your life around. Of course you don't have a life now. I should have thrown myself in front of the bullet. I feel so guilty. A young African-American child dead because of me. Well, I'll just wear the watch. It goes, wonderful. Look at that. It matches my Italian horn. Damn this safe fucking place. Fuck you. All right, great podcast today. I guess we'll leave it there. Jerush Shipper. Can I give my plugs? Go right ahead. I'll be dancing at your place. I'll be dancing at your place in Newark, Bunge Bakery. I'll be dancing. I'm playing your elf, your Christmas elf this year. I'll be having your beard on, your white beard. It's your Christmas elf. And if you want to go order your white pizza, I'll be making your white pizza. Your ricotta cheese. Or that your yeah, those are all my plugs. I want to say thanks to Dan for making my boyfriend shoot himself in the head. I seriously, thanks to Rich Coen. The book is, again, this is a quote from Keith Richards. This guy was on the road with the Stones, and he co-created vinyl. By the way, amazing articles this guy's written in Rolling Stone, and that book, Tough Jews, about the Jewish Mafia in the 30s. Unbelievable. I read that, too. So I'm a fan of his work. I read this Stones book, and anyone who knows me knows I devour Stones biographies and Stones books. Keith Richards' life, unreal.
that book, Life, by great. But my favorite Stones book might be The Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones, because it really, gets into them on the road. And, Keith with the heroin and Altamont, and then you got Exile on Main Street, a season in hell with the Rolling Stones, about when they recorded Exile on Main Street, the album, in France, because they couldn't be in London because of tax laws. 90% tax. Can you believe London was hitting them with 90% fucking taxes? How do you live? And the Stones were the first guys to rebel against that, It's like, fuck you, 90%. I've been paying 40%, by the way, since I'm 27 fucking years old. The same as Trump. How does that work, Dickwick? 90%. Like, what the fuck? How do you do anything? And they were making big money. You know why? Because you got to pay for that shithead royal family. Those ugly motherfuckers. You got to pay for Prince Charles's fake teeth. That secret fruit. Yeah, Queen Mother, 20% for the Rolling Stones. Ugh. What's that on me arse? It's the stick. It's been up there since fucking 1941. Anyway. The Sun and the Moon and the Rolling Stones by Rich Coen. Check that out at anything by Rich Coen. And watch Vinyl when it comes back on. I know I will. Filato behind the dish. Thanks.